Assalamu alaikum, dear learners. Welcome back to our Crypto Academy, where today we are delving deep into a crucial and intricate topic, the synergy between Islamic finance and cryptocurrency. We are incredibly fortunate to have a distinguished guest, Sheikh Mohamad Beyanouni, with us to navigate through these complex waters and shed light on how these two worlds can come together while adhering to Sharia law. Sheikh Beyanouni's profound knowledge and extensive experience in Islamic finance make him the absolute perfect guide to help us understand the intricacies and ethical considerations of integrating cryptocurrency into our financial practices while staying true to our faith. This session is all about bridging gaps, gaining insights, and ensuring that our steps into the world of cryptocurrency are in alignment with Islamic principles. So let's warmly welcome Sheikh Mohamad Beyanouni and dive into this enlightening conversation. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh Beyanouni. Firstly, hope you are well, and thank you very much for taking the time out to talk to us about Islamic finance. And first, before we begin, it would be absolutely amazing if you could talk to us a little bit about your background.
My name is Mohamad Beyanouni. Since I was in high school and the college and university, I was always keen to learn about the Islamic finance, and I always just read about this field. And I also liked the Sharia aspect, which is fiqh, and the business aspects. So fortunately, when I was in Kuala Lumpur in IIUM, they had specialization which is called Islamic finance. So it's basically major in fiqh with the minor subjects and the economy. And this actually was very good because I was able to get the business aspects along with the Sharia aspects. And from that, I started to read more and enhance myself more in all type of contracts and financial solutions in Islamic banking, such as Islamic bonds, the murabahas, and the other type of the contracts. Then, before more than 15 years, I started my career as a consultant, providing the solutions and the Islamic concepts to the companies, and providing the Sharia audit services to the companies as well. Then I enhanced and I started working in several banks in the field of developing new contracts and agreements in Islamic finance. So this have taken around more than 15 years. Before 5 years, I started in the blockchain field, and I had experience in the Islamic contracts that is used in the blockchain also.
So how did you manage to bridge the gap between crypto and Islamic finance?
It wasn't easy, to be honest. It took me around 1 year just to read and understand. So the first year was all about reading about the chain, about the cryptocurrencies, what's that concept. After 1 year, I started to buy and trade few coins, but it wasn't easy, to be honest. 1 year was a long time to read. But after that, yes, I had the needed experience in the smart contracts and all the modules used in the chain to be able to give the Sharia approvals and verdicts on that.
And at the time, there was no literature or rulings available on cryptocurrency and Islamic finance, I guess, right?
I haven't seen any. It was in 2017, and I haven't seen any. So the only way was to read the white papers and to read the chains that were available at that time. So it was not that easy, yes. It took like 1 month to understand the concept of the mining. What is mining? It was good actually to read and to have the information about that. Because without that information, without that reading, I wouldn't be able actually to purchase the coins, and I wouldn't be able to provide the Sharia opinions on that.
What is Islamic finance in general, and how does it work?
All right. So basically, Islamic finance is the rules and regulations that is set by the Sharia law, which is fiqh, to ensure certain criteria and principles to the, let's say, to the entity or to the investment or to any other activity that is done by an Islamic entity. So to start with, we can say that Islamic finance overall, it refers to a system that operates in accordance with Islamic Islamic principles and guidelines derived from the Sharia law. It prohibits the interest, the excessive gharar and jahala, which is the uncertainty, and investing in industries that are not allowed, such as the gambling and pornography. So instead of interest-based financing, Islamic finance uses profit-sharing investment modules like the Mudaraba, which is a sleeping partnership, and the Musharaka, which is a joint venture. These type of deals or contracts focuses always on the concept of sharing the losses and earnings. There are some other types also of contracts, such as a murabaha, which is a markup sale, the ijara, which is a leasing, the istisna, which is a contract of to establish or manufacture something, and the salam, which is the advance purchase of a commodity. And there is also the sukuk, which is the Islamic bonds. So for any entity, such as the Islamic Windows or a fully Islamic bank, a fintech, or a blockchain, for these entities to operate in Islamic finance, it would need to follow certain Sharia guidelines determined by a Sharia board, and it should have all the activities overseen and audited by the Sharia board and scholars to ensure that everything is being done in the right way. And the Sharia board, of course, have to be independent and not controlled by the management. So that's basically the main aspects of the Islamic finance.
Thank you so much. That was a great explanation. And if you can just please briefly cover what are the main principles in Islamic finance.
All right. So there are several principles in Islamic finance. These can be summarized in the following, let's say, points. The first point is actually to share risk. So in Islamic finance, person can only be rewarded if they take risk. Not a very high risk, of course, but there should be an element of risk. This is taken from the main Sharia ruling, which is al-Kharaj bi-al-Daman. The principle here mainly ensures that there is always an ownership, that there is always ownership of assets. And with this ownership, there is always a logical risk that is permitted in Sharia to be taken for a chance to be rewarded. So there should always be an element of risk, to share the risk, and not throw the risk on one party where the other party enjoys the income. The second point we can say is the growth of the economy. Unlike the conventional banking or finance, this is to ensure the involvement of assets when trading and investing in Islamic finance. So in Sharia, cash alone cannot generate the income, as this would be very harmful to the economy. So when cash will always generate the cash, only the rich people will get the benefit from that. However, in Islamic finance, if a wealthy person would like to invest their money, he or she would need first to purchase commodity, for example, then sell the commodity at a higher rate. To be able to purchase the commodity, there is a company that needs to be established, and this company would need to hire people to be able to supply the commodities. So this is a micro example showing how Islamic finance benefiting the economy. So we don't just use cash to get cash. We always use an asset or a commodity. To be able to use that asset or that commodity, there should be companies. Companies would employ the people. So this would always support the economy. And moving to the next point, which is, I believe, the third point, there should be no harm or damage. So taking excessive risk, not the first risk, not the initial risk that we mentioned in the first point. However, taking excessive risk on one party when dealing in any transaction is not allowed. As in investments or deals, in this type of investments or deals, one party would always have the sole advantage over the other party, and this is not allowed and harmful. And these deals are mainly gambling, conventional options, and any other type of deals where there is always a huge imbalanced risk module causing harm to one party and reward to the other one. So this is called the excessive risk, where one party would always have risk and the second party would always have a reward. So this is not allowed, and we can see that clearly in the gambling, the options, and in other type of deals. Moving on to the next point, which is fairness. We can call it fairness. All Islamic finance transactions should ensure fairness. This is mainly being achieved through the prohibition of interest, cheating, and uncertainties. With these guidelines being embedded, no one can take advantage of the unlucky situation of the poor and the unexperienced investors. In addition to that, one of the main points that we have in Islamic finance is the transparency. In Islamic finance, it's always important to be transparent in all aspects. So we can say that the investment details have to be transparent, the income, the performance, the Sharia compliance. This is always to ensure that the transactions are done in the right manner and all contracts are built based on the right Sharia concept. The most transparent concept or technology that we currently have or available now is the blockchain concept, where all the transactions on the chain are visible and can be tracked and audited easily. So this is a good point for the chain. I believe the last point is always the ethics. Ethics is important everywhere in Islam, in all the aspects. So even in Islamic finance, ethics is one of the most important points. For that, Islamic finance prohibits transacting in any unethical field, such as alcohol, pornography, or any other un-Islamic aspect. In addition to that, Islamic finance may disallow permitted transactions if it's known to cause harm to the counterparty, to the neighbor, to the community. So although it is allowed, it might be not permitted if it's causing harm. Meanwhile, Islamic finance also encourages social investments and charity, which is, of course, ethical act that would benefit the community, the poor, and those in need. So with these humanitarian principles and guidelines being implemented, we would have the pure image of Islamic finance, which ensures the safety of the funds of the people. So all these that we have, all the guidelines and principles that we have, is mainly to ensure the safety of the funds. And with this safety, we can see that the global Islamic finance industry has grown significantly in the recent decades, with the total assets exceeding 2.5 trillion USD. And this is, I believe, this is still the start and the beginning of the adoption of the ethical Islamic finance modules. And this would increase rapidly, and we can see it now increasing in banking, insurances, capital markets, and charities, and the blockchains. Of course, we have seen in 2022 that the launch of HAQQ, which is the first fully Islamic blockchain. This shows clearly the speed of the mass adoption of Islamic finance, which we expect to grow more than 10 trillion USD in assets in the few coming years. So these are the main principles and guidelines of Islamic finance.
Islamic finance and cryptocurrency are both pretty big and complicated topics with a lot to comprehend. We're really fortunate to have experts like you, Sheikh Beyanouni and Sheikh Mohamad, to help break it down for us. Can you explain how we can ensure that we're using cryptocurrency in a way that fits with Sharia principles and is fully Sharia compliant?
This is actually a challenge. And to be able to do that, you need to be aware actually of everything. So in Sharia, to be able to give a verdict on something, you need to understand it first. Any scholar can never give a verdict on anything unless they understand it fully. But one of the good points here, that unlike the worship acts in Islam, that does not allow or accommodate to or permit the innovation, Islamic finance allows that. It allows and encourages to innovate. So in the worship acts, we are not allowed to innovate a new type of worship. However, in Islamic finance, this is encouraged to innovate. We have the main guidelines, of course, that we cannot alter with, which we said earlier. However, it's always advised and encouraged to innovate and to get new concepts that would benefit Islamic finance and the community. So There is a ruling in Islam that says all new modules in Islamic finance are permissible in its origin unless there is a clear evidence of its prohibition. So any innovation under Islamic finance is permitted unless there is a clear prohibition to such innovation under Sharia guidelines. So since cryptocurrencies and blockchain, these innovations, 90%, I believe, of the Sharia scholar, I don't want to say more, but let's say 90% of the Sharia scholars nowadays, they still don't have the sufficient information to give a clear Sharia opinion on the blockchain. For a Sharia scholar, as we said, to be able to give a verdict on a cryptocurrency or the chain itself, they would need to have a practical experience in the blockchain and the smart contracts. Due to the lack of the information and the frameworks in some countries, some Sharia scholars are still prohibiting the cryptocurrencies, or in some cases, let's say they are not allowing people to purchase it until now, until they have more clarity to the concept, to be able to issue a verdict or fatwa on that. So we can easily say any new innovation is allowed because Islam would allow the innovation in the Islamic finance. The challenging part is to find the evidence to prohibit that only. So the easiest way to talk about that is actually to see what are the issues and the evidence that the scholars try to say that these are the reasons why it's not allowed to have a blockchain and a cryptocurrency. So one of the main issues, if I can recall, one of the main issues that they have was that some scholars say that there is high volatility in the cryptocurrencies. So in that point, they are basically referring to certain cryptocurrencies that have dropped maybe more than 50% from the all-time high. And they debate here that such volatility is causing harm to the buyers and the holders of such coins. Of course, to answer that, we can easily say that the volatility alone is not a parameter for coins to be halal or haram. We can see several fiat currencies have dropped more than 50% in the past few years. And no one is arguing that these fiat currencies are not allowed. So it is known and common. We all know that there is always risk in all financial assets. People should measure the risk carefully and not risk all their money. If they cannot manage the volatility, no need to buy a certain type of assets. So they have to monitor that and they have to see the risk that they can take in any type of asset, whether it's gold, Bitcoin, Islamic bonds. They have to monitor the risk first, then they can enter. We can see in cryptocurrencies that the holders, the long-term holders, especially in the legit coins, I'm not saying all the coins. Of course, there are some coins that are not official, and it's not allowed or permissible to purchase these coins. But I am talking here about the official coins, Islamic coin, the Bitcoin. These coins, we can always see that long-term holders are benefiting from the value of that asset, of that financial asset, regardless of the movements on the chart. They can go 100% up, then fall 50%. They can go 200% and fall. Long-term holders would always have a benefit of that financial asset. So as we said, the volatility alone is not a parameter to allow or disallow something. And this is not a call to purchase anything. It's not a financial advice. But the debate here is that the volatility itself is not a parameter to disapprove something. So this was actually the main issue. I'm trying to summarize as much as I can because sometimes entering into the debate and the answers and the debates again will take long. But that was the first issue. The second issue that I can recall is they were saying that only government can issue our currency. And this is maybe one of their toughest evidences. And they say that since these coins are not issued, of course, by the government, so it's not valid. Thus, it's not allowed to purchase and hold such coins. To address that, we can easily say, who issued gold? No one issued gold. Of course, earth. So gold is a stone. It's a stone. I cannot eat it. I cannot even wear it. Of course, I can use it in certain things, but I'm talking about gold as a currency. It's a stone. It's mined from earth. And since it's mined from earth, it doesn't have a value in itself, but the recognition of the people, they give it the recognition of a currency. Why did they do that? It's due to its, let's say, it's had a rarity, and to its long-lasting ability to survive the element conditions. So it can it can survive the weather and the climate change. Due to that, people gave it a recognition that this is a currency and an asset of value also. So an important point here is that the cryptocurrencies doesn't need also to be a currency. It's enough to have it recognized as an asset of value that holds a value. Although gold was being used as a currency, it's currently only being used as an asset of value only. So this can also be applied to the coins. So it doesn't have to be a currency always. And there is one saying from the Khalifa Umar ibn Khattab. He said that if people recognized camel skins as a currency, I will prohibit the interest in the camel skin. This saying shows that people can recognize something as a currency, even if it's the camel skin. And since people can do that, then it's up to the government to allow it as an official currency of the country or not. Of course, the government would always have and should always have the right to determine what is the currency or the main currency that is being used for the country. And they have the right to disallow any type of currencies to be traded, and the people have to abide with that. However, this does not contradict with having Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ripple, or any other coins traded as a financial asset, which we can currently see in many countries now. Which means not having the government issue the currency is not enough to say a financial asset is not allowed to be purchased or bought. As we said, there is gold, and Umar ibn Khattab, the Khalifa, said that if people consider the camel skin as a currency, then I will not allow the interest usually in that. So this shows that also people can determine or recognize a currency such as gold. In the initial days of Islam, gold was used by the recognition of the people. It's only during the Umayyad Caliphate that it was stamped and given the recognition from the country itself. Moving to the next issue, most scholars that didn't allow, of course, many allowed that, but most scholars that did not allow the cryptocurrencies, they were saying that the central bank should have full control on cryptocurrencies. So, and I remember in one of the, I think, debates that we had with them, that I told them, although it's a blockchain and it's decentralized, however, we can still have controls and KYC applied on that easily. And I gave them the example that we have a coin and a platform called Ripple, which is the XRP. It's a decentralized money transfer platform, which used its cryptocurrency XRP as a method to facilitate the transfer. Their platform is integrated with more than 150 banks around the world. It's a big number of entities. And they apply all the type of the KYCs and the central bank requirements. So this is a proof that although we have a blockchain and a cryptocurrency, we can still apply the requirements and the KYC that is needed from the central banks. Moving to the next point, one of the debates that I can recall from the scholars was there is a limited supply of the coins. Usually what they were debating here is that there are certain coins or currencies that doesn't have enough supply or doesn't have a big supply of coins, which is leading to increasing the price of that coins massively. And with that, most average people, they cannot or they are not able to buy that coin at a high rate. I told them again here, we cannot compare Bitcoin or a cryptocurrency to the fiat coins. It can never be compared. We need to compare an apple with an apple, gold with a Bitcoin maybe. Cryptocurrencies can be bought in since people doesn't have to buy a full Bitcoin to own it. They can buy it in cents or satoshis worth of 10 USD. And no, it's not a must that they should buy a full piece of Bitcoin. Similar to gold, it's not a must that we have to buy 1 kilo. We can buy grams only of the gold. So although the price is increasing due to the supply and the demand, people can still buy it, and the limited supply in itself is not a parameter to disapprove something. There is always a limited supply of everything. There is a limited supply, of course, of gold. We don't know it now, but there is a limited supply of gold. The more we have from that supply, the less the price will be, because the demand and the supply are always the main factors. But the volatility will always be the same, and people can buy portions of that. So this was, I think, the fourth issue. And I can recall that there is a fifth issue, which is most of the people that, or scholars, that didn't allow the purchase of a cryptocurrency. They were saying that these coins are valued by USD. And since they are valued by USD, that means these assets are speculative assets only. They are not real assets. They are only here for people to speculate. So they are trying to compare it to something similar to the CDFs or Forexes, where there is no real ownership of the assets, where these assets in the Forexes are only used to speculate. So in the Forexes and all the platforms of the Forex, 99.9%, these are CDFs. So they trade the difference of the price of the assets only. So they are trying to compare Bitcoin and other type of coins, even Islamic coin, any other type of coin. They are trying to compare it with these CDFs or the Forex. They are trying to compare it with the Euro and the USD in the Forex. They are trying to compare it with the Bitcoin in the Forex. We need to understand first that the Forex are CDFs and they don't have real ownership of the assets, and it's not allowed to use these. We are only allowed to use exchanges, centralized or decentralized, that will give the real or the actual ownership of the coins. So that's one. Number two is that even if these assets are valued in the USD, it's not enough to say that these are not allowed. We can see many other assets and top currencies in the world, even gold valued in the USD. Cryptocurrencies are valued in the USDs, in euros. We can see it valued in another coin. So these are just a method for people to determine the value of their assets, of their financial assets. So having USD or any other coin or currency used to value something is allowed. There is no issue with that. However, if this valuation was here for the purpose of a speculation only, or for CDFs, then this will not be allowed, because in this case, it's a kind of gambling. We are trading the prices only, and this is not allowed in the Sharia guidelines. People or the investors should always have the ownership of the actual assets, whether it's in a centralized exchanges or banks, because currently in banks, when I have a USD, my USD is in my account, and the bank owns it in a nostro account with another bank. Similarly, when I own my Bitcoin, I could own it in HAQQ or in Binance, and Binance can own it in the chain itself. So at the end, there should be an actual ownership of these coins. And if this is not insured in any exchange, then yes, it's not allowed to trade in that exchange only. But we cannot prohibit a cryptocurrency because one exchange doesn't have or doesn't facilitate the actual ownership of these assets. So these were the main actually issues, I can say, or evidences that was used from the scholars to prohibit the cryptocurrencies. And these were the answers that that we usually give to prove that it is allowed and that we can use it.
Another important topic, especially also for us at Islamic Coin, is that we are currently dealing with and having a lot of partnerships with different projects. How can we find out that if they are Sharia compliant, or in other words, how can we do a Sharia audit?
Okay, so for any chain or for any even bank or entity to be Sharia compliant, they need to follow Sharia guidelines. These Sharia guidelines are set from the Sharia board. So the first point is to set the correct and the right Sharia guidelines for the certain chain, or for the certain entity, or for a certain exchange. And one important point here to raise here is that people are comparing, or some scholars let's say, are comparing cryptocurrencies to shares and the equity. And they are trying to base and build the guidelines based on the standards that we have for equity. This is causing a big issue because in equity, we can easily say we need to compare the percentage of the assets to the percentage, let's say the percentage of the Islamic assets to the non-Islamic assets in the company, and the percentage of the Islamic finances to the conventional financing in the company. So let's assume that if the conventional financing in a company is more than a certain percentage, then in this case, it wouldn't be allowed to purchase a share or the equity of the company. This cannot be applied in the cryptocurrency world. We can see many scholars applying that. Unfortunately, this is not right because cryptocurrency is not an ownership to the chain. It's not an ownership to the company. When I own Bitcoin, I don't own the chain. When I own XRP, I don't own the platform that transfers. When I own, let's say, Islamic coin, I'm not an owner of HAQQ or the chain itself. So there should be a specific guidelines for the coins that is not the same or different that yes, that's not the same as the equity guidelines. This is the first point. Once we have these guidelines, of course, every entity, every chain would have a different guidelines based on their concept. Once we have the guidelines, these guidelines have to be audited on a regular basis. It could be every month, every quarter. And to do that, the Sharia team should have enough or sufficient information in two things: in the entity itself or the blockchain itself, if it's a chain, or in the exchange itself or the bank, if it's a bank. The second point, they need to understand the Sharia guidelines. So they should have Sharia information and Sharia awareness in the guidelines, and they should have the procedural and the practical information and know-how for the entity itself. Only with that, they can conduct the auditing. Of course, the auditing, when we say auditing, it doesn't mean that 100% of the activities have to be audited. Of course, this is allowed, and we can do that. But sometimes, with a systemized approach, this would make it easier for the auditor not to audit all the transactions, because we know that the system was built in the right way. It was built based on the concept of the Sharia board. So we know that there is no way for that system to conduct anything wrong. However, in certain smart contracts and the transaction, the auditors would need to check that these deals are being monitored in the right way and are being executed as per the Sharia guidelines. And they would need to check that such contracts and the blockchain language was not amended after the approval. In some chains, let's say, even in the entities, the policies could change. Now the board, they could approve a policy of a certain thing, which is approved by the Sharia board. After 1 year, they could change that fully. In a blockchain, there could be a vote to change also something, or a smart contract. The Sharia auditor here have to come and ensure that such changes are not contradicting with the Sharia guidelines. So these are basically the main point on how to audit a Sharia entity or in the Islamic finance.
Thank you very much for sharing your knowledge with us today.
Thank you first for giving me the chance to talk about this interesting topic. And I hope people will at least get some further information above what they currently have from the things that I said.
Subhanallah, what an incredibly insightful conversation we've had today. A heartfelt thank you to Sheikh Mohamad Beyanouni for gracing us with his wisdom and expertise, helping to illuminate the path of integrating Islamic finance principles with the dynamic world of cryptocurrency. As we conclude this lesson, we are reminded of the importance of knowledge, reflection, and the pursuit of ethical practices in all of our financial dealings. Stay curious, keep seeking knowledge, and feel free to revisit this session whenever you need guidance. Until our next lesson, Assalamu alaikum.